everyone, my name is Carmela, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a short story about my near-death experience. So here goes. About 10 years ago, I was working as a New York City school teacher out in East Harlem. And at that time, I also was working a small tutoring business out in Queens. So I remember this day pretty clearly. I was driving, heading to Queens, and it was a beautiful spring day. Just driving along, listening to my music in bumper-to-bumper New York City traffic. You know, I'm sure we all know, if we've driven in New York, we all know how that is on a weekday, right? Around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So, just driving along as usual, and all of a sudden I hear a loud commotion. And it was immediately followed by my car jerking off to the side. I felt an impact. And all I remember that time is kind of like things happening in slow motion. So my car felt the impact, it moved, and then all of a sudden, all I could see up in the air is, in slow motion, a Jeep hitting my car and tumbling over. It was just like a movie, tumbling over the front of my hood and landing just a few feet in front of me, crashing down on the ground, upside down. Immediately, I froze. I think I screamed actually that time, and I just remember saying, like, oh my God, I cannot believe this. Frozen in shock and just like couldn't believe what was occurring. As that vehicle is up in the air and is flipping, I hear other noises. So it was a multiple car collision. And so that car, as soon as it lands in front of me, I'm just there kind of still frozen in shock. And then a man exits the vehicle. Now, at that time, it's unclear whether he crawled out. I'm assuming he crawled out because the vehicle was upside down. But he crawled out, and all I remember seeing was his body filled with blood. I remember him standing up, and he was literally wobbling from side to side with his arms to the side. And then finally, when he stopped and regained his balance, I just saw blood gushing down his face. You ever seen the Carrie movie? Okay. Came out many years ago. I'm talking about the original Carrie movie. Like literally blood dripping down his face like that. Quite scary. And I just remember screaming out loud. I don't remember what I was saying. I just was like, oh my God, he's like, I guess I was saying he's bleeding. I'm one of those people that do not like the sight of blood. So when I saw that, I just was like, you know, freaking out. And I remember I was carpooling with someone, so I'd given him a ride, and, you know, he got out the vehicle. I couldn't get on my driver's side because I guess the damage from the car hitting that side. And I remember as I was trying to get out, my knee on my leg, my left leg, was jammed up against the, I guess, toward the steering wheel. So I realized at that time, as I'm like checking myself, like, am I okay? You know, I realized as I tried to get out the vehicle, I was stuck and I had sustained an injury to my leg. So I tried to crawl out and, you know, help this individual that was in front of me. All of a sudden I heard screaming from the car, and it wasn't a guy screaming, it was a female voice. And I just remember someone said, oh my God, help me, and I'm like, oh my God, somebody's in the vehicle. So my friend gets out the car, and then he kind of like pulls me out the car, and I'm, you know, trying to walk over to help out the poor lady that's screaming and stuck in the car, but then I couldn't really walk. My leg was, I realized at that time I was pretty hurt. Um, we looked back and we saw the people that had initially hit us or hit everyone. They were just like walking off, like walking away from the accident, and we're like, wait a minute, something is like not right here. They're walking away from the accident. It looks like they're like, it's like a hit and run. So immediately, my friend, big, tall, pretty buff kind of dude, started walking the direction to, get their information and find out, like, hey, what's going on here? And I just remember the whole entire highway was like completely at a standstill. Like, I mean, cars were getting backed up, and I can see yonder past the initial accident that there was like at least 3 other cars that was involved in this accident. So it was a multiple car crash. And I just remember, trying to limp toward the lady just to, help out, because literally I can hear her crying from inside the vehicle, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, is this really happening? And then all of a sudden I heard sirens, and then you can hear from a distance the ambulance coming, and the police sirens, and the paramedics. Finally they arrived, and they took care of the man that was bleeding, and they got the woman out and assessed my injuries. And I just remember getting into the paramedic, the ambulance, and speaking to the lady, and I was just trying to bring her some encouragement. And the poor lady, it turns out, was the guy that was bleeding. It was his poor mother. She was up in age, and I was just trying to speak to her. We went into the ambulance together and just letting her know that, hey, don't worry about it, things are gonna be okay. It turns out like she had some teeth missing from the accident, and she was kind of pretty banged up. So I just remember trying to just encourage her and say, hey, don't worry, everything's gonna be okay. And she was talking to me too. She was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, don't worry, it doesn't look that bad. Just trying to speak some life into her. And we got to the hospital, and I just remember sitting there, and I was on the stretcher, and they were assessing my injuries, and I just remember at that moment, just thinking like, wow, like it could have been so much worse. And like, thank God, like God was definitely there that day. He definitely was present. He was there, and he was covering us, and he was protecting us. And like I said, that day could have been so much worse. It comes to find out that we had some investigators come into the room and talk to us, and it comes to find out some young 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids, they decided to go to the uncle's house and took his car out of the driveway without permission, and decided to go joyriding while drinking and driving. So unfortunately that day, because of their reckless behavior, a lot of people got injured, but thank God that no one died. They took statements, and later on after that incident, the police had called them and took follow-up information, and it turns out that they did finally catch those individuals, and they did end up fleeing from the incident, but they ended up tracking them down back at the uncle's house, and charges were pressed. And I'm not really sure if there was a conviction made or not, but at the very least, I'm hoping that they learned their lesson, and that something like that would never ever happen again. But moral of the story is, God was definitely present that day, and he definitely was covering us, and things could have been so much worse. So you never know. Life is so precious, and it could be taken away in literally a flash. Hope you guys enjoyed the story, and have a blessed evening. Take care.